Okay, welcome along to Brain Fog Month. I am chatting with Kerry Dolan. Kerry, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi, yeah, I am a hypnotherapist working in women's health and well-being, and specialising in menopause, but also in fertility and general areas of women's health, pregnancy, birth, pain management, all of those kind of things.
Awesome. So, brain fog. It's a fun one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where do we start? Tell me how you manage brain fog.
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, with all of the things that I'm using for people's menopausal symptoms, I'm testing a lot of them out on myself at the moment. So these things are coming up for me too. Um, I mean, the first thing is just to have a sense of humour, and I think part of the group, there was a woman who really made me spit my tea out the other day when she was talking about she was working in a phone shop and offered, what did she offer someone? Unlimited data, calls and sex. Um, so just, so I think there have definitely been, particularly in the earlier stages of perimenopause, those moments where just it is just, so sometimes you're forgetting words and you're left kind of stuttering, and then other times just the most random word will pop out in the place of something that you intended to say, and you might not even notice it until you see the blank stares on other people. So yeah, it's a thing, and it's especially if, because people aren't talking about menopause, there's sometimes then a lot of shame around having to explain that. So in part for myself, it's about being very open and honest about what's happening. And I teach 2 days a week at a college, as well as doing the hypnotherapy. So I've had some interesting conversations with teenage boys about why random words just come out of my mouth. But I think that's a really important thing to do, because obviously they probably have parents at the same kind of age. So one of the things is to relax around it, because it's very much exacerbated by stress and anxiety. And I think with a lot of our symptoms, hot flushes, the same can be said for that. Our reaction to them, the shame, the embarrassment, the kind of feeling, especially so many of us have got, really important positions, or you're a grown woman who suddenly can't remember the word for window or whatever it might be. There's a lot of shame and embarrassment that can come up, and of course those things override then your system and chase out any hope that you have of finding those words. So I use the hypnotherapy very much to just regain a sense of calm and composure, in order to carry on. If I can, I'll just avoid that word and skirt around for a while with the faith and confidence that it will come back, and that kind of thing. So those are the in the moment things. I think the other thing that is just so common across all of the women that I work with is that women of menopausal age, I don't care who you are or what your life situation is, whether you have children, whether you're married, whether you're working or a stay-at-home parent, women are exhausted by midlife. We all put in far too much. We're nearly half the world's workforce, and then we're doing over 70% of the world's unpaid labor. So the figures just don't add up. Women are exhausted. And if you've ever put on your computer and the spinning icon is just there because you've got too many tabs open, that is every perimenopausal woman. And it's really hard, I think, for women to start letting go of things. I have women who I mean, a lot of my time is spent convincing women that it's okay to let their 16-year-old make their own packed lunch if it relieves a little bit, those kind of things that we're doing so much for everybody, and we have done for such a long time. It's really hard to let go of and allow ourselves to slow down a little bit and maybe make a bit of space for us, because what happens when we realize we need to slow down, for a lot of us, is that we start cutting out the things that we enjoy and that are good for us, like rest. Like exercise that you enjoy, or time with friends, socializing, all of these things. So that's a big part of it, is just managing stress and anxiety around the symptoms, ensuring that you are having rest breaks throughout your day, because whilst you're functioning, whilst you're thinking, whilst you're doing, your brain can't process any updates. And the important thing to remember about menopause is that in all of these transition periods, the hormone levels, as we know, are changing, but the hormones really shape our brains. So what's happening in perimenopause is that our brains are essentially undergoing some structural upheaval, and a little bit, you're a perfect example. I know your house is being done at the moment, so that causes all kinds of chaos. You're now living in a caravan, you don't know where things are. That's essentially what's happening in our brains. And there was a study done recently by a Dr. Greendale for the National Library of Medicine. 2,362 peri women were observed over 4 years. And what they found was there was definitely, no shit, Sherlock, there was a decline in memory and learning. However, I think this is really, really important for women to cling on to, what they also found is that it comes back. That it, for the vast majority of women, it's the state of chaos. So at some point, just as you will move back into your swish new kitchen and your home will be all organized and everything will be fine, for the vast majority of women, once we get through this kind of turbulent hormonal stage, then it all comes back. And depending, it's so different for all of us. Some of us will need HRT to make that transition, and depending on your circumstances, your job, whether there are areas where you can give yourself a little bit of a break whilst you kind of deal with these changes, then you might be able to ride it out with some regular meditation, hypnosis, all of those kind of things. Some of us are going to need something a bit more hefty to help us through, but yeah, there is hope that it comes back. And essentially as well, Christine Northrup says that we shift to the right side, more to the right side of the brain, which is the creative, the intuitive side of the brain, which is quite a nice outcome. But again, it is that chaotic moving phase that we're experiencing.
I love your analogy with us living in the caravan. Is absolutely hilarious. Only because yesterday I needed to find the tape measure because the kitchen lady hadn't taken one measurement. It's like, Steve, there's a tape measure here somewhere. We did, it's not in storage or anything. He's like, no, there's definitely one. It's in the awning somewhere. And I'm like, right, okay. Oh, here it is. Where did you find it? In the plate drying rack.
Of course.
It just feels like a perfect analogy for how our brains feel at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know the word's in there somewhere. I know everything I need to know is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is.
And you didn't label the boxes properly.
Absolutely. But also from what you were saying about it getting better after, again, another sort of a personal take on that. My parents moved to France a few years ago. Mum started learning French at 60 and is now more or less. So there is definitely hope. I mean, she still needs lists for everything, but there is.
Absolutely. And our brains still continue to build new cells, and they're still growing and changing and learning. It is all there, and it's important to keep using it. I mean, that's one of the ways that we keep that all going. But yeah, being able to manage the stress around it, being able to manage the embarrassment, ensuring that you have those rests so the regular updates can happen in your brain, and letting yourself. I just think there's such a resistance to the urge to rest. We're all exhausted. That's one of the biggest symptoms that we have is fatigue. And I know that for many people, they are trying to get more sleep, but then the hot flushes, the night sweats interfere with that, or the anxiety. So that again, that's something that hypnotherapy is really useful for. But there is also still this real resistance that we have to let ourselves just rest and take things a bit easier. I think we see that as a kind of, if I slow down, that's me out to pasture. But it's a break, you know, it's a transition. And on the other side, you see so many inspirational women who are postmenopausal, who are just off there fighting their battles, you know, doing their whatever makes them passionate, and this real zest for life that you see. But we do need that little bit of taking the foot off the pedal for a little while and allowing ourselves a little bit of a break during this time.
And I mean, as it boils down to with almost every topic we cover in these interviews, actually we just need to be kind to ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, and I think again, plug in hypnosis, obviously, but for a reason. It's been my savior. I think so many women that I speak to, and myself included, we know that we're doing too much. We know that we deserve a rest. We know that we don't have to do everybody's everything in order to validate ourselves. But somewhere deeper down, there is this message that we've just taken on board, that we are supposed to do everything, that we're supposed to be self-sacrificing, that's what it means to be a woman. And it's a quite a damaging message, and sometimes we really need to go a bit deeper to work with that and shift that very fundamental kind of unconscious message that we have, and say, do you know what? Especially at this point in your life, you have already been doing everything for everyone. You've already worked your arse off all this time. Now it is time for you to take back a little bit, to let other people help a bit, and to focus on the things that you deem important. I think another really interesting thing about brain fog is that there's a lot of evidence out there that suggests it's not so much memory loss, it's attention. And I kind of think in the same way as my kids, I've developed a habit. So the things that I'm really into and really interested in, I don't have too much trouble remembering. It's things like, you know, sorry to my husband, I'm pretty sure he won't be watching this, so we'll be okay. But, you know, sometimes when he's talking about football or something that I'm not interested in, I really struggle to pay attention. Or even the kids, if they're really, you know, sometimes they want to tell you the minutiae of their day, like literally in you know, minute by minute detail. And yeah, it's sometimes it is paying attention, and I do think that's the rebel of the perimenopausal woman coming out, the kind of, no, enough of this. I don't want to listen to this. I don't want to pay attention. It's boring. It's just not going in.
So true. I used to be like, it's something that used to drive my mother potty. My father and I used to both, at opposite ends of the house, have TV and music on, and we'd be reading. Like, this was just a sort of a weekend thing that would happen. And mum would kind of be in the middle of the house hearing opera clashing with like 90s grunge. And she'd go into either, and she'd be like, how, you can't be watching the telly and listening to this music and reading a book. And both of us were like, well, yeah, of course we can. This is absolutely fine. Nowadays, I can read a book, or I can listen to music, or I can watch the telly.
Yeah.
There isn't that, there isn't the bandwidth to go, oh yeah, I'm hearing all of these things. No, I'm just like, I'm doing this thing now.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's fine. It's just,
yeah, it's about adapting to it, isn't it? And then actually you get to really focus a lot deeper on the one thing that you're doing, because although we can multitask, and particularly during our reproductive years, women do multitask, you don't give everything the depth of attention that you would to one thing. So there are advantages to coming fully into a
Yeah.
particular activity and doing it. But yeah, it's a period of adjustment, I think, and that can be overwhelming depending on your life circumstances.
That's been
So
brilliant.
yeah,
I think we've covered loads there. So thank you very much, Kerry.
it's been a pleasure, and I hope you're back in your house really soon.
So do I. And then hopefully my brain will resemble more order, like my life
Yeah.
will.
I think that helps as well, doesn't it? Having the order around you really does help. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.